Mara is the name given to the temple musicians of Travancore, Cochin and Malabar in the state of Kerala, India, whose primary duty was to provide the traditional temple Sopanam music. The position in the caste system varies from place to place in Kerala. In Travancore, although they were Ambalavasi, they had status below Brahmin and above Nair. In Malabar they enjoyed relatively superior status. Their death pollution conducted in 13 days, but in the Nair death pollution is 11 days. The house of Marar is called Marath, and the women called Marasyar. They have the right to come front of the sreekovil origin and occupation. Below is an excerpt from the Madras Census Report of 1901, which reports the Maarans as temple servants and drummers in Malabar. Like many of the Malabar castes, they must have come from the east coast, as the name frequently appears in the Tanur inscriptions of 1013 AD. They followed, then, the same occupation as that by which they live today, and appear to have held a tolerably high social position. In Travancore Kingdom, Marath is a particular category among them. Edgar Thurston, in his Castes and Tribes of Southern India, states the traditional origin and occupation as follows. Before the days of Sankaracharya, the sole occupation was beating the drums in Brahmanical temples. When Sankaracharya was refused assistance in the cremation of his mother by the Nambudiri Brahmins, he is believed to have sought in despair the help of one of these temple servants, with whose aid the corpse was divided into 8 parts and deposited in the pit. For undertaking this duty, which the Nambudiris repudiated from a sense of offended religious feeling, the particular Maaran was thrown out of his caste by the general community, and a compromise had to be effected by the sage with the rest of the caste, who returned in a body on the day of purification along with the excommunicated man, and helped Sankaracharya to close his mother's death ceremonies. In recognition of this timely help, Sankaracharya is said to have declared the Maaran to be an indispensable functionary at the death ceremonies of Nambudiris and Ambalavasis. The traditional occupations of the Maarans was sounding and playing the Panchavajra, 5 musical instruments in temples known as the Sanku, Timila, Chenda, Kaimani and Madalam. The Asu and Pani are sounded by the highest dignitaries known as Asupani Maarans. The beating of the Pani is the accompaniment of expiatory offerings to the Saptamata, as 7 mothers of Hindu religious writings, namely Brahmi, Maheshwari, Kaumari, Vishnavi, Varahi, Indrani and Chamunda. There are certain well-established rules regarding the hymns to be recited and the music to be played. So religiously have these rules to be followed that, during the Utsava Bali, that the priest who makes the offering, the Varya who carries the sacred lamp, and the Maaran all have to fast and dress themselves in the orthodox Brahmanical fashion, with the uttariya or upper garment tied around their torso like the sacred thread. The higher classes of Maarans claim 6 privileges: Pani, Apano, Koni, Thiramatam, Nadamatam, Balakor and Puchor. Pani is the right to play the Asu, and Pani, Koni, literally means a ladder and refers to the stretcher made of bamboo and kusa grass, a straw on which corpses of high caste Hindus are laid. Thiramatam is the right to sweep the inner courtyard of temples, a privilege otherwise reserved for the Ambalavasi castes. Nadamatam is the right of erecting a small pandal, a booth like in the courtyard of a Nambudiri house, where oblations are offered to the departed spirit on the 10th day since death. Balakor is the right to retain remains of the sacrificial rice offered to the mains, and Puchor the right to retain a part of the offering of flowers and food made to the deity. The higher classes of Maarans in Malabar consider themselves superior to other Maras owing to ritual purity and abstinence from flesh and liquor, and also their aloofness from the lower classes who assist at funeral ceremonies and function as priests for the Nairs. During Jati Nirnayam they were classed equal to Nair proper and hence sometimes considered the lower-ranking section of Ambalavasis. In Travancore they continued to be included among the other Maarans. Though playing the music in temples is the main vocation, they are indispensable in Nambudiri, Kshatriya and Ambalavasi funeral ceremonies and almost all ceremonies of the Nairs such as Ketu Kalyaranam. Some practice sorcery and witchcraft and were also priests in temples dedicated to Bhadrakali. They assisted the Nambudiris and Rajas during the Chola Matonsha ceremony. Subdivisions. In Malabar, Kochi and North Travancore up to Alapura, the Marans are divided broadly into two groups, the Maras, also known as Asupanis, and the remaining Marans. The Maras are those higher classes of Marans who distanced themselves from any other services, such as serving as funeral priests etc., but temple service and hence secured a higher status among the Ambalavasis with the honorific title of Mara. From Malapura southwards, there exists no such division and even the Asupanis were included among the remaining Maras of central and southern Travancore. The Maras here are divided into several groups on various bases. Sometimes they are classed on the basis of the castes whose various rites and rituals they perform, such as Ilathu Maras for those who were working under Ilathu Nairs. Likewise they may be classed as per locality also. For instance, Tecumseh Maras and Vadakumseh Maras. On the basis of occupation the highest were the Asupani Maras, followed by subcastes known as Sithikans, Mangala Maras etc. However, the real social divisions of the Travancore Maras are only four and they are Orunal Maras. This was a comparatively small class of Maras. What is unique about these Maras is that whoever does the Tali Ketu Kalyanam, a ritual marriage ceremony of 4 days, and ties the Tali alone is the husband of the females. But in Kerala the husband who tied the Tali was only the ritual husband and actual marriage's sambandam was carried out later with another man of the same or superior caste. The Orunal Mara females may have sambandam, a consort, either with the Tali-Their alias the ritual husband or else only with the Nambudiri, and no other Maaran may be accepted for sambandam. Thurston states thus about the Orunal Maras: the word Orunal means one string and signifies the absence of widow marriage. It is a section of Maras whose widows do not remarry. They look upon themselves as higher than the Irunals, basing the superiority in the custom obtaining among them of marrying only once in the lifetime. However, in the event of that calamity, marrying a Brahmin or one of distinctly higher caste is tolerated. Irunal Marans. Unlike Orunal Marans, it is not mandatory for the Irunal Marans that the women have sambandam either with the Tali husband or else of Brahmin. They may consort through sambandam any Maaran of the same caste and not necessarily the Tali-Their. Widow marriage is permitted for the Irunal Marans. Chepat and Kulingi Maarans. These were initially local varieties from Chepat and Kulingi and later became independent subcastes of the Maarans. Ranking at the same level are two other Maaran subcastes known as Asthikurichi and Palikal Maarans. While the former assisted Brahmins at funeral ceremonies, the latter were required to purify the Nairs after pollution. These Maarans also assisted the Brahmins and Kshatriyas in the Cholam ceremony. They are also known as Sithikans, derived from Chaitika, meaning one concerned with the funeral pyre. Muttal Maarans. They are those Maarans considered lowest in the scale and found only in Kalkulam Taluk, now in Tamil Nadu. Traditionally they are supposed to have been an inferior class of people who were elevated in that district to a significantly superior position, rendered necessary by temple exigency. The very term Muttal means substitute or emergency employee. Manners and customs. The customs and ceremonies of the Marans are the same as the Nairs, excepting for the Annaprasana ceremony of first food giving, when the Maaran child partakes consecrated food of the temple, unlike the Nair child whose ceremony is performed at home. Marans could be purified from death pollution by the Nambudiris, while they themselves were purificatory priests of the Nairs. Technically, all Marans are expected to be abstainers from meat, but barring the Asupani class and those in the service of temples and Brahmins, this rule was not uniformly practiced. They have the right to come in front of sreekovil but not come inside of sreekovil. The rite in temple is called kayakam. The death pollution is conducted 13 days, but in the Nairs conducted only maximum 12 days. Status. The Marar caste is a Ambalavasi caste. Still, the status of Marar caste is below Brahmin and above Nair community. Eventually they were broadly divided into two classes, namely the Marars of Malabar and the Marans of Travancore. The Marars correspond to the Asupani Marans and were considered higher in status owing to their aloofness from the other Maran subcastes, as also from performing any other services but those within the temple, whereas the Marans of Travancore were considered lower in status even in position inside the temple, and mostly does not have their own family name, like other castes of Kerala. Famous Marars: K. Karunakaran, Shadkilagovindamara, K. Muralidharan, Palavore Ppu Mara, Matanor Sankaran Kuti Mara, Peruvanim Kuttan Mara.